Bismillah, walhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. The astute observer will have noticed that over the last few episodes, we had skipped over ayah number 12. You may even be commenting or sending us emails. You skipped ayah 12, you skipped ayah 12. But the reality is this was done purposefully. You see, because in my understanding of this surah and in my studying of this surah, I felt that ayah 12 was the perfect middle point. It was the perfect balancing point of this surah. This surah started off by the recognition of the sovereignty of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And it went on to highlight the reality of those people who disbelieve. And then it continued at the latter end of this surah, highlighting the different blessings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the rejection of those people who are denying the hereafter. And in the middle of this surah, in ayah number 12, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala actually contrasts the disbelievers and the believers. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, إِنَّ الَّذِينَ يَخْشَوْنَ رَبَّهُمْ بِالْغَيْبِ لَهُمْ مَغْفِرَةٌ وَأَجْرٌ كَبِيرٌ. That those people who are fearful of their Rabb, they are conscious, they are in awe of their Master, bil-ghaybi, in secret and in private, for them and special for them is maghfirah, is a forgiveness, wa ajrun kabir, and a huge reward. In this ayah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes the quality of the person who truly takes the lesson of Surah Al-Mulk. And this is what we hoped to conclude our series with. We learned a lot of different things in this series. We learned the importance of having an akhirah worldview. We learned the beauties of this surah and the protection that it can provide for us. We learned about the sovereignty of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the beauty of His creation. We learned about the scary and frightening punishment of Jahannam awaiting those who deny and reject Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We learned about the importance of recognizing the majesty and the blessings of Allah upon us. We learned about the beautiful names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We learned about the incredible blessings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We learned about preparing for the Day of Judgment. And all of these things lead to one core concept. Be a person of taqwah. That's what this means. Umar ibn al-Khattab radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, one of the great companions of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, once asked another companion, describe to me, what is taqwa? What does taqwa mean? We say this taqwa, al-muttaqeen, the people of taqwa, these are the people of paradise. What does that mean? And the Sahabi, he explained to him, he said, to understand taqwa is to imagine yourself walking down a path that has thorns on it, right? And so maybe you might not be able to imagine a path that has thorns. Maybe you can imagine a path or a kitchen or a hallway in your house that has broken glass. Imagine you're standing in the kitchen and you knock over a glass and it shatters everywhere. How is it that you walk out of the kitchen to get the broom? Very carefully. You look very carefully. You have to bend over to see where the light is reflecting off of the glass to make sure that you don't step on glass, as this can cause extreme pain and can end up being very detrimental. And so you're very cautious where you take the first step, and you look and you take the next step, and you look and you take the next step. He said that is taqwa. It is living a life of consciousness. It is acknowledging the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and using that as a source to remember Him. It is submitting to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It is being grateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It is living a life in preparation for the hereafter. And as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala beautifully summarizes in the 12th verse of this surah, it is living a life where you are in awe, you are in recognition, you are remembering Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala even when you are in private and when you are by yourself. Because that is the example of the person who truly recognizes Allah as their master. Whether people are watching or not watching, it doesn't matter. Because I am a servant of Allah. You know, there's that very famous story where a father had given his kids a bunch of bags of candy. And he says, I'll give you these bags of candy, and you're allowed to eat them only if you can go somewhere where no one can see you. And so the first kid went into the closet and he ate his candy in the closet. The other kid hid under the table. The next child went under the bed. The next child went outside behind a tree. And the last child came back to his father having not eaten his candy. And his father asked him, why didn't you eat the candy? And he says, my dear father, it's because everywhere I went, I remembered that Allah can see me, and so there was nowhere for me to hide. This is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is teaching us. This is taqwa. This is the objective of recognizing the sovereignty of Allah. This is the goal of this surah. For us to cultivate, for us to create a relationship with Allah, that whether private or whether public, we submit to Allah fully and completely. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us a people of taqwa. Allahumma ameen. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgive us of our shortcomings. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless us with consistency in our actions. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us from the punishment of the grave. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala unite us all in the highest level of Jannah, neighboring the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Jazakumullah for joining us on this journey of the tafsir of Surah Al-Mulk. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdik. Nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta. Nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk. Jazakumullahu khairan. Wassalamu alaykum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.